when the lights went out. Chapter 1. The Breakdown. The late September sun cast long shadows across M72 as Eloise Gurley's sedan coughed, sputtered, and rolled to a defeated stop on the shoulder. She gripped the steering wheel and let out a long breath that fogged her glasses momentarily. "Come on," she muttered, turning the key again. Nothing, not even a click. In the passenger seat, Pugsley poked his masked face through the mesh of his carrier, chittering with concern. Behind him, Clarice remained curled in her blanket, unbothered by their predicament. Eloise pulled out her phone. No signal. Of course, she'd taken what she thought was a scenic shortcut to Mackinac Island, and now she was somewhere outside a tiny town called Fairview with a dead car and no cell service. The irony wasn't lost on her. A veterinarian who could diagnose a sick animal in minutes couldn't figure out what was wrong with her own vehicle. She stepped out into the crisp autumn air, the scent of pine and decaying leaves filling her lungs. The road stretched empty in both directions, bordered by dense forest painted in early fall colors. A hawk circled overhead, and somewhere in the distance, she heard what might have been a turkey calling. This was definitely not how she'd planned to start her vacation. The sound of an approaching engine made her turn. An old pickup truck, powder blue and well-maintained despite its obvious age, slowed as it neared. Eloise's city-bred instincts kicked in. Should she be nervous? But something about the truck's unhurried approach felt more neighborly than threatening. The truck stopped, and a man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He moved with an economy of motion that spoke of someone who never wasted energy. A boy, maybe 9 or 10, bounded out from the passenger side, all excitement and curiosity. "Looks like you could use some help," the man said. His voice was deep, measured, and carried a note of genuine concern rather than pity. "That would be amazing," Eloise said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "I'm Eloise. My car just died, and my phone has no signal." "Daniel Donovan," he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm but careful. "This is my son, Liam." "Hi," Liam said brightly. "What's wrong with your car? Is it the alternator, battery, fuel pump?" Eloise blinked. "I honestly have no idea. I'm a vet, not a mechanic." "A veterinarian?" Liam's face lit up. "That's so cool. Do you have any animals with you?" "2 ferrets, Pugsley and Clarice." "Can I see them?" "Liam," Daniel said quietly, and the boy immediately took a step back, though his enthusiasm remained undimmed. Daniel walked to her car, popped the hood, and began examining the engine with practiced eyes. After a moment, he pulled out a multimeter from his truck and tested a few connections. His brow furrowed. "This is strange," he muttered. "Nothing's responding. Not the battery. Not any of the electrical systems." "Is that bad?" Eloise asked, though she could tell from his expression it was. Before Daniel could answer, Liam pointed south. "Dad, what's that?" They all turned. On the horizon, a bright flash of light bloomed, silent and distant, like lightning from a storm too far away to hear. But it wasn't lightning. The light had an unnatural quality, a blue-white brilliance that seemed to pulse before fading. Daniel's face went still, but Eloise caught something in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. He walked quickly back to his truck and turned the key. Nothing. He tried again. Still nothing. The truck that had been running perfectly seconds ago was now as dead as her sedan. "Dad!" Liam's voice had lost its brightness. Daniel stood motionless for a moment. Then his gaze swept the horizon, the road, the forest. When he looked back at them, his expression was calm but serious. "We need to get to my farm," he said. "Now, gather what you need from your car. Essentials only." "What's happening?" Eloise asked, even as her heart began to race. "I'm not certain, but I have a theory, and if I'm right, we don't have much time before things get complicated." He moved to the bed of his truck, pulling out a large backpack and a rifle case with practiced efficiency. "How much can you carry?" Eloise's mind spun. I don't understand. My car can be towed, right? There's AAA. "AAA isn't coming," Daniel said, not unkindly. He met her eyes. "Trust me, please." Something in his certainty, in the quiet authority of his voice, made her decision. She'd always trusted her instincts, and right now, they were telling her that this stranger with the steady hands and serious eyes knew something she didn't. "Okay," she said. "Give me 2 minutes." She pulled her small roller suitcase from the trunk, grabbed the ferret carriers and her backpack with her laptop and books. Daniel took the suitcase without asking, slinging his own pack over his shoulders with a rifle case. Liam hoisted his backpack and a small cooler. "How far to your farm?" Eloise asked as they started walking. "About 2 miles, northwest, through that access road." Daniel pointed to a barely visible dirt path leading into the trees. "And you think something's really wrong? Not just a weird electrical problem?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "You saw that light. I've seen something similar before, in training. If I'm right about what it was, every electronic device within hundreds of miles just stopped working. Cars, phones, computers, all of it. An EMP?" Eloise's voice came out as a whisper. She'd read about them in sci-fi novels, but those were fiction. This was a Michigan highway on a beautiful fall afternoon. "Possibly. I hope I'm wrong." But his tone suggested he didn't think he was. They walked in silence, Liam between them, the boy's earlier excitement replaced by thoughtful quiet. The forest seemed louder now, or maybe Eloise was just paying more attention. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of wild turkeys, the crunch of their footsteps on the dirt path. After 20 minutes, the trees opened up to reveal a property that looked like something from a magazine spread. A 2-story farmhouse in soft yellow with white trim sat at the center, its wraparound porch complete with a swing and rocking chairs. Beyond it, neat rows of Christmas trees stretched across rolling hills. Barns, paddocks with horses and goats, and what looked like chicken coops dotted the landscape. 2 massive dogs came bounding toward them, and Eloise nearly dropped the ferret carriers before she saw their wagging tails. "Bubba, Daisy easy," Daniel commanded, and both English mastiffs immediately slowed, though they pressed close to Liam with obvious affection. "Welcome to Donovan Woods," Liam said, some of his earlier brightness returning. "It's the best place in the world." Eloise looked at the solar panels on the barn roofs, the well-maintained equipment, the thriving garden near the house. Daniel had built something remarkable here, something that suddenly seemed less like a charming farm and more like a fortress of self-sufficiency. And if Daniel was right about what had just happened, they were going to need every bit of it. Chapter 2. The Silence. The farmhouse kitchen smelled of cinnamon and fresh bread, a comforting contrast to the growing unease in Eloise's chest. She set the ferret carriers on the floor, while Daniel moved through the house with purposeful efficiency, checking windows, testing light switches, examining a complicated-looking radio setup in his study. "Nothing," he said, returning to the kitchen. "No power from the grid, no radio signals, AM, FM, or shortwave. Solar batteries are intact, but they're isolated systems. My satellite internet is down." He looked at Liam. "Your tablet." Liam pulled it from his backpack and pressed the power button. "Dead, but it had full charge this morning." Daniel nodded slowly, his jaw tight. Eloise watched him process information like a computer running calculations, and she realized this man was not just a farmer. The way he moved, the way he assessed, there was training there, military maybe. "Okay," Daniel said, pulling out a chair. "Sit down, both of you. I'll explain what I think happened, and then we need to make some plans." Eloise sat, Pugsley and Clarice now exploring their carriers with curious sniffs. Liam settled across from her, his young face serious but attentive. "That light we saw," Daniel began, "was most likely a high-altitude nuclear detonation. It's designed to create an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP. The radiation releases a massive burst of electromagnetic energy that fries electronic systems. Cars, computers, phones, anything with microchips or circuits. But we're not hurt," Eloise said. "I mean, if there was a nuclear bomb, it would have been detonated at the edge of space, maybe 200 miles up. The point isn't the blast or fallout. It's the pulse. The electronics are the target." He looked at her steadily, "Which means someone just attacked the United States in one of the most devastating ways possible." The words hung in the air. Eloise felt her breath catch. "But who? What? I don't know. But the why matters less than what happens next." Daniel stood, moving to look out the window toward his Christmas tree fields. Most people don't know how to live without electricity. No cars, no grocery stores getting restocked, no clean water pumping to houses, no heat when winter comes. In a few days, maybe a week, people are going to get desperate. "So we're safe here?" Liam asked, and Eloise heard the small note of fear he was trying to hide. Daniel turned back and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "We're going to be okay, buddy. That's why we've prepared. Remember all those projects we've been working on?" Liam nodded. "The solar system, the water well, learning to preserve food, your old vehicles." "Exactly. This farm is as close to EMP-proof as I could make it. We have food, water, power from the solar batteries, livestock, and skills." He looked at Eloise. "I'm sorry you got caught up in this, but you're welcome to stay here as long as you need. It's not safe to travel right now." Eloise's mind reeled. This morning she'd been excited about a vacation. Now she was listening to a former soldier. She was sure of it now. Explain how civilization might collapse. But as she looked around the solid, well-prepared homestead, at the calm competence in Daniel's eyes and the surprising maturity in young Liam's face, she felt something unexpected, a small measure of hope. "I can help," she said. "I may not know farming, but I'm a doctor. For animals, but medicine is medicine. And I'm a fast learner." Daniel's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "That's more valuable than you know. Medical knowledge is going to be scarce." A scratching sound made them all look down. Pugsley had managed to unlatch his carrier and was now investigating the kitchen with fearless curiosity, his ferret body flowing like liquid over the floor. "Oh, Pugs, no." Eloise started, but Liam was already scooping up the ferret with gentle hands. "He's so cool. Look at his little mask." The boy laughed as Pugsley climbed up his arm to perch on his shoulder. "Dad, can we show Eloise around so she knows where everything is?" Daniel checked his watch. An old mechanical one. Eloise noticed. "Good idea. I need to check the perimeter and secure some equipment before dark anyway." "Liam, give Eloise the tour. Stay within sight of the house." "Yes, sir." Liam handed Pugsley back to Eloise with obvious reluctance. As Daniel headed out, Eloise secured the ferrets and followed Liam onto the wraparound porch. The boy pointed out each building and feature with encyclopedic knowledge. "That's the main barn. It has the battery bank for the solar panels and the biodiesel setup. Dad makes his own fuel. Over there's the livestock barn with the horses, goats, and pigs. The chicken coop is behind it. We get about 24 eggs a day." He walked to the edge of the porch. "The Christmas trees are Dad's main business, but he says the farm is designed to be completely self-sufficient. He learned that in the Army." "Your dad was in the Army?" "Yeah. He was a sapper. That's like a combat engineer. He knows how to build stuff and blow stuff up." Liam said it with obvious pride. "He did 2 tours before I was born. That's where he learned survival stuff." Eloise watched Daniel in the distance, moving between buildings with purpose. "And your mom?" Liam's expression dimmed. "She died when I was 4. Car accident on an icy road. I don't remember her much, but Dad says she was really smart and kind. He keeps her picture in his room." "I'm sorry," Eloise said softly. "It's okay. Dad's great. He teaches me everything. Engineering, literature, survival skills. I'm homeschooled, so we do a lot together." He brightened again. "Want to see my shooting range?" "Your shooting range?" "Well, Dad's, but I practice too. I can hit a target at 50 yards with a .22. Eloise wasn't sure what surprised her more, that a 9-year-old had firearm training, or that he stated it as casually as another child might mention playing video games. But as she looked across the beautiful, isolated farm, she realized that here, those were practical skills, survival skills. "Maybe later," she said. "For now, why don't you tell me about those turkeys I keep hearing?" Liam's face lit up, and as he launched into an explanation of why Fairview was called the wild turkey capital of Michigan, Eloise found herself smiling despite the surreal circumstances. This boy was remarkable, intelligent, enthusiastic, and more capable than most adults she knew. The sun was lowering toward the horizon, painting the farm in gold and amber light. In another timeline, Eloise would be checking into a hotel on Mackinac Island right now, planning which fudge shop to visit first. Instead, she was on a Christmas tree farm with a former Army engineer and his precocious son, preparing for what might be the end of the world as they knew it. And somehow, watching Daniel secure his property with calm efficiency while Liam chattered beside her about wild turkey populations, Eloise didn't feel as afraid as she probably should have been. Chapter 3. The First Night. Dinner was venison stew from Daniel's freezer, which he explained would need to be eaten first before the frozen food spoiled, served with fresh bread Liam had made that morning and vegetables from the garden. They ate at a solid wooden table in the kitchen while oil lamps cast warm, flickering light across the room. This is really good, Eloise said, surprised at how hungry she'd been. Dad's an amazing cook, Liam said around a mouthful of bread. He says it's like chemistry, but more forgiving. Daniel smiled slightly. I've had practice. When you're feeding a growing boy and working a farm, you learn fast. After dinner, Daniel spread a large map across the table. It showed the Fairview area, with Donovan Woods marked in pencil, along with annotations about distances, terrain, and neighboring properties. The Yoder family is our closest neighbor, Daniel said, pointing to a property adjacent to his. They're Mennonite. They already live simply, without much modern technology. They have a larger farm than ours, and we've helped each other over the years. I want to check on them tomorrow, see if they're safe and if they need anything. Will other people come here? Eloise asked, the question that had been nagging at her all evening. Daniel's expression grew serious. Probably. Fairview's small, but there are always people passing through. Tourists, hunters, campers. Without cars, they'll be stranded. Some will look for help. Others. He didn't finish, but the implication hung heavy. Others will take what they need. Eloise finished quietly. Yes, Daniel met her eyes. I'm not trying to scare you, but you need to understand what we might face. Most people are good, especially in small towns, but desperation changes things. We need to be prepared for both, to help where we can, but to protect what we have. Liam had grown quiet, his earlier enthusiasm subdued. Daniel noticed and ruffled his son's hair gently. Hey, we're going to be okay. We've trained for this, right? Right, Liam said, but his voice was small. Eloise felt something twist in her chest. This child shouldn't have to think about protecting his home from desperate people. But then again, in this new reality, maybe his father's preparation was the greatest gift he could have given him. I have a guest room prepared, Daniel said, standing. It's upstairs, second door on the right. There's a bathroom across the hall. Water still works. We have our own well with a manual pump backup. Use what you need. Thank you, Eloise said. Really, you didn't have to take me in. Daniel paused, his hand on the back of his chair. Yes, I did. That's not who we are, turning away someone who needs help. He looked at her with those steady eyes. You're not a burden, Eloise. You're someone who was in trouble, and now you're here. That's all there is to it. The simplicity of his words, the quiet conviction, made Eloise's throat tight. She'd lived in the city for so long, where everyone was busy, where kindness often came with conditions. This was different. Upstairs, the guest room was simple but comfortable. A brass bed with a handmade quilt, a dresser, a window overlooking the tree fields. Eloise set up the ferrets in their carrier, making sure they had water and food, then sat on the edge of the bed. Through the window, she could see Daniel outside with Bubba and Daisy, walking the perimeter of the property with a flashlight. Even now, he was vigilant, planning, protecting. She wondered what it cost him, always being the strong one, always being prepared for disaster. Then she wondered about the quiet loneliness Liam had mentioned earlier, how Daniel kept his late wife's picture in his room, how he built this entire life for his son, but seemed to have left little room for himself. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Liam stood in the doorway, holding a stack of books. I thought you might like something to read, he said shyly. Dad said you like sci-fi and horror. I grabbed some from our library. We have a really good collection. Eloise looked at the titles. Asimov, Le Guin, King, Bradbury. These are perfect. Thank you, Liam. No problem. He hesitated. Are you scared? She considered lying, giving him false comfort. But something about this boy's direct gaze, so like his father's, made her choose honesty. A little, she admitted. Mostly because I don't really understand what's happening yet. But I feel safer here than I would anywhere else right now. Liam nodded thoughtfully. Dad will keep us safe. He always does. And now you can help too. He needs that, I think. Someone to help him. The insight from a 9-year-old caught her off guard. Before she could respond, Liam smiled and said goodnight, padding back down the hall in his sock feet. Eloise changed into sleeping clothes and settled under the quilt. Outside, she heard Daniel come back in, his low voice speaking to the dogs, the sound of locks being checked, the house being secured for the night. She should have been terrified. The world had possibly just ended, civilization was collapsing, and she was stranded with strangers on a farm in the middle of nowhere. But as she drifted off to sleep, the last thought in her mind was how Daniel's hands had been gentle when he'd taken her suitcase, how his son had brought her books, how they're home, even in crisis, felt more welcoming than her city apartment ever had. Chapter 4. Morning Plans. Eloise woke to unfamiliar sounds. Roosters crowing, the distant lowing of cattle, the thud of an axe splitting wood. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was still dreaming. Then yesterday came flooding back, and she sat up quickly, heart pounding. Through the window, the farm looked peaceful in the dawn light. Daniel was at a woodpile near one of the barns, his breath visible in the cool air as he methodically split logs. Even from here, she could see the efficient rhythm of his work. No wasted movement, just steady progress. She dressed quickly in jeans and a flannel shirt from her suitcase, checked on Pugsley and Clarice, both still sleeping in their hammock, and headed downstairs. The kitchen smelled of coffee and frying bacon. Liam stood at the stove, carefully tending a cast-iron skillet, while Bubba and Daisy lounged nearby in hopeful anticipation of dropped food. "Good morning," Liam said brightly. "I'm making breakfast. Dad's doing chores. Coffee's on the stove. We use a percolator now since the electric maker won't work." Eloise poured herself a cup, savoring the strong, hot brew. "You're a good cook. Dad taught me. He says self-sufficiency starts with being able to feed yourself." Liam flipped the bacon expertly. "He's teaching me engine repair next month." Well, he was going to. I guess now it's more important than ever. The door opened, and Daniel came in carrying an armload of firewood. He'd worked up a sweat despite the cool morning, his thermal shirt clinging to muscular shoulders. He noticed Eloise and nodded. "Morning. Sleep okay?" "Better than expected. Actually, good." He stacked the wood in a box by the large stone fireplace in the adjoining living room. "After breakfast, I want to drive out to the Yoder's place. The old truck should still work. It doesn't have any modern electronics. Liam will stay here with you, get you familiar with the daily routines." "Should I come with you?" Eloise asked. "If they need medical help." "That's smart thinking, but I'd rather have you here the first time. I don't know what we'll find out there, and Liam shouldn't be alone." Daniel washed his hands at the sink. "If the Yoders are okay, I'll bring David back with me. He's one of their sons, about 19. Good kid. He can help explain what they might need." They ate breakfast together: bacon, eggs from the farm's chickens, and toast made from Liam's bread. It was simple food, but satisfying in a way Eloise's usual yogurt and granola never were. "What should I do while you're gone?" Eloise asked. Daniel considered. "Liam can show you the livestock routine: feeding, watering, checking for any health issues. That's where your skills will be invaluable. Then there's garden harvesting. We need to get everything preserved before the first frost." "I can do that." After Daniel left in a rumbling 1960s Ford pickup that had probably been old when her parents were born, Liam handed Eloise a pair of work gloves. "First, chickens," he announced. "They're the easiest, but also the loudest." He wasn't wrong. The chicken coop was a chaos of feathers and clucking as Liam scattered feed and Eloise gathered eggs in a basket. The hens regarded her with suspicious, beady eyes, clearly aware she was an amateur. "Don't let them intimidate you," Liam advised seriously. "Chickens can sense fear." "I'm a veterinarian," Eloise said with mock indignation. "I don't fear chickens." A large rooster chose that moment to flap aggressively near her feet, and she yelped, nearly dropping the egg basket. Liam laughed so hard he had to sit down. "Okay, maybe a little fear," Eloise admitted, grinning. They moved through the morning chores: goats who butted their heads against Eloise's legs affectionately, pigs who snuffled and grunted with surprising intelligence, horses who were gentle giants under Liam's confident hands. The boy narrated constantly, explaining feed ratios, signs of illness, breeding schedules, all with the kind of detailed knowledge that made her realize his homeschooling had been incredibly thorough. "Your dad's done an amazing job teaching you," she said as they hauled water to the goats. Liam beamed. "He says education is the most important thing. That's why we read together every night: classics, modern stuff, everything. Last month we finished The Count of Monte Cristo. It was so good. That's one of my favorites," Eloise said, surprised. "Really? Dad loves it too. He says it's about patience and justice, and how revenge is complicated." Liam paused thoughtfully. "I think he relates to Edmond Dantes sometimes. Because of Mom." The insight was heartbreaking in its perception. Daniel Donovan had built a fortress of self-sufficiency, had trained himself and his son for worst-case scenarios, and had closed himself off from anything that might hurt him again. A man who'd lost someone he loved and decided the safest thing was to never let anyone that close again. Your dad's a good man, Eloise said quietly. The best, Liam agreed. Then he grinned. And now we have you here. Dad needs more people around. He gets lonely, even if he doesn't say it. I can tell. Before Eloise could respond to that loaded statement, Bubba began barking urgently from the front of the property. Both of them froze. That's his warning bark, Liam said, his playful demeanor instantly gone. Someone's coming. They hurried toward the house, Liam with a confidence that suggested this wasn't his first security alert. From the porch, Eloise could see two figures walking up the long driveway. A man and woman, both looking exhausted and dirty, carrying backpacks. Stay behind me, Eloise said instinctively, moving in front of Liam. I should get the rifle, Liam said calmly. Dad's protocols. Let's see what they want first. Eloise's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. The couple stopped at a respectful distance, hands visible, postures non-threatening. The woman called out, Please, we don't mean any harm. We're just looking for help. Our car died on M72 yesterday. We've been walking since. They looked genuinely desperate, pale, shaking slightly, the man favoring one leg. Eloise made a decision. Stay there, she called back. I'm going to come talk to you. Do you have any weapons? Just a pocket knife, the man said. Look, we're from Ann Arbor. We were driving to a cabin up north when everything stopped working. We just need water and maybe directions to the nearest town. Eloise glanced at Liam. Go inside. If I call for you, bring water bottles. Otherwise, stay ready to lock the doors. Miss Eloise. Liam, trust me. She softened her tone. I've got this. The boy hesitated, then nodded and slipped inside, though she could see him watching from the window with Bubba and Daisy flanking him. Eloise approached the couple cautiously. Up close, she could see they were in their 30s, wearing hiking gear that had seen better days. The man's leg issue was obvious. His jeans were torn and bloodstained at the knee. I'm Eloise, she said. This isn't my property, but I can help. What happened to your leg? Fell yesterday, the man said. Keith, this is my wife, Sarah. I think I might need stitches, but all the houses we've passed have been empty or people wouldn't answer the door. Eloise's medical training kicked in. Liam, she called toward the house. Water bottles and the first aid kit from the kitchen, please. Liam appeared quickly, handed her the supplies while keeping a safe distance from the strangers, then retreated. Sit down, Eloise told Keith. Let me look at that leg. As she cleaned and examined the wound, a deep gash that would indeed need stitches, Sarah asked quietly. What happened? Do you know? Everyone's saying different things. EMP, solar flare, terrorist attack. We don't know for sure, Eloise said honestly as she worked. But all electronics are down. The property owner here thinks it might be an EMP. Jesus, Keith whispered. How long until things get fixed? Eloise finished bandaging his leg. The cut was bad, but she cleaned it thoroughly and pulled it closed with butterfly strips. Stitches would be better, but this would work for now. I don't know, but my advice? Get somewhere safe and hunker down. Fairview is about 2 miles east. There might be people there organizing. She gave them the water bottles, some granola bars from the emergency kit, and clear directions back to the main road. Thank you, Sarah said, tears in her eyes. You didn't have to help. Yes, I did, Eloise said, and realized she was quoting Daniel from last night. After they left, Liam came back out onto the porch. That was really brave, he said, and kind, like Dad would do. I had backup, Eloise said, nodding toward Bubba and Daisy, and a very capable young man watching my back. Liam grinned, but then his expression turned serious. More people are going to come, aren't they? Probably, Eloise said. Your dad was right about that. We'll be ready, Liam said with quiet determination. Looking at this 9-year-old boy who could cook, farm, shoot, and keep watch with equal competence, Eloise believed him, and she realized that she wanted to be part of that readiness. Not just a guest seeking shelter, but someone who contributed, who helped protect this remarkable place and the people in it. When Daniel's truck rumbled back up the driveway an hour later, a young Mennonite man in traditional clothing sitting in the passenger seat, Eloise was already planning how she could make herself truly useful. This was her home now, whether temporary or not, and she would pull her weight. Chapter 5, Building Bridges. Daniel's expression was grim as he climbed out of the truck, and Eloise's stomach tightened. The young man with him, David Yoder, she assumed, looked shaken but unharmed. "Everything okay?" she asked as they approached. "The Yoders are fine," Daniel said, "but we saw something troubling on the way back." He glanced at Liam. Everyone inside. Around the kitchen table, David accepted coffee with a quiet "thank you" while Daniel explained. "There's a group of people gathering at the old campground off M33. Looks like stranded tourists, maybe 15 or 20 people. They've got tents, but not much else. We stopped briefly. They're already getting desperate. Some wanted to come with us. Got aggressive when we said no." "Did they follow you?" Eloise asked. "No, I made it clear we were just passing through. Didn't mention the farm specifically. But it's only a matter of time before they start searching the area." Daniel rubbed his face tiredly. "David's father wants to have a meeting. Us, them, and a few other local families. Pool resources, make plans. Safety in numbers." "That's wise," Eloise said. She told him about Keith and Sarah. Daniel listened carefully, nodding when she explained how she'd handled it. "You did good," he said simply. "Help them without revealing too much about our supplies. That's the balance we need." David spoke up, his accent carrying the slight Germanic lilt common in Mennonite communities. "My father says the Donovan family has always been good neighbors. In times like these, such friendships matter most. He proposes we meet tomorrow afternoon at our farm. Bring what knowledge you have, and we will share ours." "We'll be there," Daniel said. He looked at Eloise. "All three of us, if you're willing." The easy inclusion of her in us made something warm bloom in Eloise's chest. Of course. After David left with a share of their eggs and vegetables, Daniel's idea of neighborly exchange, they spent the afternoon in practical work. Daniel taught Eloise how to operate the manual water pump, how to check the solar battery system, how to adjust the chicken coop ventilation for the coming cold weather. Every task came with explanation, patience, and an assumption that she could handle it. "You catch on quick," Daniel said as she successfully primed the pump on her second try. "Some people get frustrated with manual systems." "I had a good teacher," Eloise said, "and I'm motivated. I don't want to be dead weight." Daniel stopped what he was doing and looked at her directly. "You're not. You helped those people today, took care of Liam while I was gone, and you're learning everything I'm throwing at you. That's more than pulling your weight." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary. Eloise felt heat rise to her cheeks and looked away first, suddenly very interested in the pump mechanism. That evening, after a dinner of roasted chicken and root vegetables, Daniel pulled out a leather-bound book from his study. "Reading time," he announced, and Liam immediately brightened. "What are we reading?" the boy asked. "I thought we'd start something new, since we have a guest with excellent taste in literature." Daniel glanced at Eloise. "How do you feel about The Martian?" Eloise laughed in surprise. "We're? That's perfect given the circumstances." They settled in the living room, a fire crackling in the stone fireplace. Daniel read aloud with a clear, engaging voice that brought the story to life. Liam curled up on one end of the couch with Daisy, while Eloise found herself on the other end, Pugsley exploring the furniture between them. Bubba sprawled across Daniel's feet in the armchair. As Daniel read about Mark Watney's determination to survive against impossible odds, Eloise found herself watching him more than listening. The firelight caught the gray at his temples, the strong line of his jaw, the way his hands held the book with the same careful competence he brought to everything else. When he laughed at a particularly funny line, the sound was rusty, as if he didn't do it often enough. Liam caught her looking and gave her a small, knowing smile. She stuck her tongue out at him, and he barely contained his giggle. "What's so funny over there?" Daniel asked, pausing mid-sentence. "Nothing," Liam said innocently, "just really enjoying the book." Daniel's eyes moved between them, suspicious but amused. "Uh-huh." He continued reading. Later, after Liam had gone to bed and Eloise was about to head upstairs herself, she found Daniel on the front porch, a rifle across his lap, staring out at the dark tree fields. "Keeping watch?" she asked softly. "Old habit, harder to break than I thought." He gestured to the other rocking chair. "Join me." She sat, pulling a blanket around her shoulders against the October chill. The stars were impossibly bright without light pollution, the Milky Way a river of white across the black sky. "I've never seen stars like this," she said. One silver lining of losing electricity. Daniel's voice was quiet, though it's a hell of a price to pay for a better view. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Eloise said, Thank you for today, for making me feel useful instead of like a burden. You are useful, and even if you weren't, you'd still be welcome here. Daniel glanced at her. I meant what I said before. That's not who we are. Liam said you learned that in the army. Taking care of your people. Partly, but mostly I learned it from my wife. His voice didn't waver, but Eloise heard the old pain underneath. Emma, she believed everyone deserved kindness until they proved otherwise. Even when I came back from deployment all edges and nightmares, she just saw me, the person under the armor. She sounds wonderful. She was. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Losing her nearly broke me. If it wasn't for Liam, I think it would have. So I built this place, somewhere safe, somewhere I could control, somewhere nothing bad could happen to us again. He allowed a short laugh, and then the world ended anyway. But you were ready, Eloise said. You protected your son. That's what matters. I was ready for the disaster. I wasn't ready for. He trailed off, then shook his head. Never mind. For what? Daniel looked at her, and in the starlight, his expression was vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. For someone else to protect. For the possibility that maybe I don't want to do this alone anymore. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Eloise's heart pounded. Daniel, sorry, that was too much. You barely know us. And here I am. It wasn't too much, Eloise interrupted. She took a breath. I've spent the last 5 years alone in the city, married to my work, telling myself I was fine. And maybe I was. But being here with you and Liam, even with everything that's happening, I don't feel alone. I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. Daniel stood slowly, setting the rifle aside carefully. He moved to the porch railing, his back to her. You don't know what you're saying. A few days ago, you were on vacation. Now you're trapped here with strangers in what might be the collapse of civilization. That's not a choice you made. It's just where you ended up. Eloise stood too, moving to stand beside him. You're right. I didn't choose this, but I'm choosing to stay. I'm choosing to help, and I'm choosing to trust you. He turned to face her, and she could see the war in his expression. Hope fighting with fear, wanting to believe, but terrified of being hurt again. Eloise. Whatever he was going to say was cut off by Bubba's sudden, urgent barking from inside the house. Both of them tensed immediately. That's the perimeter alert, Daniel said, all vulnerability gone, replaced by instant tactical focus. He grabbed the rifle. Get inside. Lock the doors. Don't open them unless you hear my voice. What about you? I'm going to check it out. Go, now. Eloise wanted to argue, but saw the look in his eyes. This was what he'd trained for, what he knew how to do. She hurried inside, locked the door, and woke Liam quietly. What's wrong? He asked, instantly alert despite having been asleep moments before. Your dad's checking something outside. He said to lock up. Liam nodded and moved with practiced efficiency, checking windows, securing latches. They waited in the darkened kitchen, Bubba and Daisy tense and alert beside them. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Then finally, Daniel's voice. It's me. Open up. Eloise unlocked the door. Daniel came in looking grim. Another man behind him, older, weathered with apologetic eyes. This is Tom Miller, Daniel said. He lives about 5 miles south. Someone tried to break into his house tonight. He barely got away. Tom nodded shakily. Group of men, maybe 6 of them, said they knew he had supplies that he had to share. When I refused, they got violent. I slipped out the back. Came here because I heard you were former military. The group from the campground? Eloise asked. Don't know. Maybe. Or maybe people are already forming gangs. Daniel's jaw was tight. Tom, you'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow at the Yoder's meeting, we need to organize a real defense. This is just the beginning. As they settled Tom in with blankets on the couch and Liam reluctantly went back to bed, Eloise felt the last illusion of safety crack. The farm wasn't a fortress. It was a target, and they were going to have to fight to keep it. Chapter 6, The Alliance. The Yoder farm was larger than Donovan Woods, with a massive barn, multiple outbuildings, and fields that stretched to the horizon. As Daniel drove up in the old truck, Eloise and Liam squeezed into the bench seat beside him. She saw at least a dozen people already gathered in the yard. Samuel Yoder, the patriarch, was a tall man with a gray beard and kind eyes that missed nothing. His wife, Ruth, welcomed them with warm bread and apple butter. The other families introduced themselves. The Hoffmans, the Burks, and several others, all locals who'd known each other for years. Tom Miller looked better after a night's sleep and hot food, though his fear was still evident. When Samuel asked him to recount what had happened, The assembled group grew increasingly worried. "We cannot allow lawlessness," Samuel said in his careful, deliberate way. "But we also cannot become what we fear. We must help those in need while protecting our families." "I agree with the principle," said Jack Burke, a gruff man in his 50s. "But how do we tell the difference between someone who needs help and someone scouting our supplies?" Daniel cleared his throat. "In the military, we'd set up a perimeter defense and establish protocols. I think we need something similar here. A network of farms working together. Communication, shared watch schedules, mutual aid. But no electricity," someone pointed out. "How do we communicate?" Eloise spoke up. "What about a signal system? Visual markers, maybe, or runners between farms. David could coordinate. He's young, knows the area." David Yoder nodded eagerly. "I can do that. My brothers too." For the next 2 hours, they planned. Each farm would maintain watch schedules. They'd establish signals, colored flags for different levels of threat, smoke signals for emergencies. Daniel sketched out a simple but effective perimeter warning system using tripwires and bells that didn't require electronics. "We should also establish a community medical station," Eloise suggested. "I'm a veterinarian, but medical principles are similar. If anyone gets hurt or sick, they should know where to come." "Here," Ruth Yoder said immediately. "We have the space, and our faith calls us to help the suffering." "I can't assist," said Martha Hoffman, an older woman. "I was a nurse before I retired." The group was starting to feel less like frightened individuals and more like a united community. Plans emerged for sharing preserved foods, pooling tools, organizing hunting parties for the coming winter. Then someone asked the hard question: "What about the people at the campground and others who were stranded?" Silence fell. Finally, Samuel spoke. "We should reach out, offer what help we can, but cautiously." "I'll go," Daniel said, "tomorrow morning. See what they need, what their situation is. Maybe we can integrate some of them, if they're willing to work and follow our rules." "That's dangerous," Jack Burke said. "What if they take you hostage, use you for leverage?" "I won't go alone. I'll take volunteers, people who can handle themselves." Daniel looked around the group. "But we need to try. Otherwise, we're just waiting for them to get desperate enough to attack." Eloise felt her stomach twist with worry, but she understood his logic, and she admired it. The refusal to simply turtle up and wait, the willingness to try for something better, even at personal risk. After the meeting, as people dispersed with their assignments, Samuel pulled Daniel aside. Eloise was nearby, helping Ruth pack up food supplies, but she could hear their conversation. "You have taken in the English woman," Samuel said. "Not a question, just an observation. She needed help. Car broke down at exactly the wrong moment. And now," Daniel was quiet, "now she's part of us, part of the farm. She's good with the animals, learning fast, and Liam adores her." "And you?" Samuel's weathered face was knowing. "It has been many years since Emma passed. You have been alone long enough, my friend. It's complicated. Life is always complicated. That does not mean we should avoid living it." Samuel placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Do not let fear of loss prevent you from the gift of love. That would be the greater tragedy." Eloise pretended she hadn't heard, but her heart raced. On the drive home, Liam chattered about all the plans while Daniel drove in thoughtful silence. When they arrived back at Donovan Woods, the sun was setting, painting the farm in shades of gold and amber. "I'm going to feed the animals," Liam announced, hopping out of the truck. "Come on, Eloise. I'll show you the quick evening routine." As they worked through the chores, Liam said casually, "You know, Dad smiles more now, since you got here." "Does he?" Eloise tried to keep her voice neutral. "Yeah, and he's not as lonely. I can tell." Liam scattered chicken feed with practiced sweeps of his arm. "I think he likes you. Likes you. Liam, I'm just saying it would be okay if you liked him back. I think it would be really good, actually." He looked at her with those serious eyes. "He needs someone, and you're really cool." Eloise knelt down to his level. "Your dad is an amazing man, but things are really complicated right now." "Adults always say that," Liam interrupted. "But life is pretty simple, really. You care about people or you don't. You help them or you don't. Everything else is just details." Out of the mouths of babes, Eloise thought. This 9-year-old had just summarized what she'd been trying to figure out for days. That night at dinner, Daniel announced his plan to visit the campground in the morning. "Tom agreed to come with me, and Jack Burke. We'll take supplies, food, basic medical items. Make contact. Assess the situation." "What if they're hostile?" Eloise asked, unable to keep the worry from her voice. Then we leave. I'm not a hero, Eloise. I'm just trying to prevent a worse situation down the line. His eyes met hers across the table. But I appreciate your concern. Later, after Liam had gone to bed, Eloise found herself once again on the porch with Daniel. This time, he brought 2 cups of herbal tea Ruth Yoder had sent home with him. Lemon balm, he said, handing her a cup. Ruth swears by it for calming nerves. Mine could use calming, Eloise admitted. I keep thinking about tomorrow. What'd go wrong? I'll be careful, I promise. Daniel sat in the rocking chair beside her. But I can't just hide here and hope for the best. That's not who I am. I know. It's one of the things She stopped herself. One of the things you what? Eloise took a breath. One of the things I admire about you. Your courage. Your commitment to doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. When Emma died, I promised myself I'd keep Liam safe no matter what. I built this whole life around that promise. Self-sufficiency, preparation, isolation. I thought if I controlled every variable, nothing could hurt us again. That's understandable. It's also impossible and lonely. He looked at her. You've been here less than a week, and already you've shown me what I've been missing. Community, laughter, someone to share the load with. Someone who sees me as more than just Liam's dad or the prepared veteran. Daniel, let me finish. His voice was gentle but firm. I know the timing is terrible. I know you didn't ask for any of this. But Samuel was right. I've been alone long enough. And I don't want to miss this chance because I'm too afraid to take it. He stood and moved closer, standing in front of her chair. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he reached out and took her hand. I'm not asking for promises or commitments, he said. I'm just asking for honesty. Do you feel this too? This connection. Eloise stood, still holding his hand. Her heart hammered so hard she was sure he could hear it. Yes, from that first day, when you stopped to help. I felt it, even though the world's ending. Maybe especially because of that. She smiled slightly. Life's too short not to be honest, right? That's what your son told me. Daniel laughed softly. He's too smart for his own good. He's wonderful. You've done an incredible job with him. We've done an incredible job with him, Daniel corrected. This past week, you've been as much a parent to him as I have. He listens to you, respects you, trusts you. That matters more to me than anything. They stood close now, hands intertwined, the October night cool around them. Daniel lifted his free hand and gently pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch careful and reverent. Can I kiss you? He asked softly. Please, Eloise whispered. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, both of them testing this new territory. Then Daniel's hand cupped her face, and she leaned into him, and the kiss deepened into something that spoke of loneliness ending, of 2 people finding unexpected refuge in each other. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. I wasn't expecting this, he said. Neither was I, but I'm glad it happened. Even with everything else going on? Eloise smiled, especially with everything else going on. Samuel's right. We can't let fear stop us from living. They stood together on the porch for a long time, holding each other, watching the stars well overhead. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers. But tonight, they had this connection, hope, and the beginning of something neither of them had been looking for, but both desperately needed. Inside the house, Liam peeked through his bedroom curtain, saw his father and Eloise embracing, and smiled before climbing back into bed. Sometimes he thought the universe worked out exactly the way it should. Chapter 7. The Campground. Daniel left at dawn with Tom Miller and Jack Burke, all 3 men armed and carrying backpacks full of supplies. Eloise watched the old truck disappear down the driveway with a knot of anxiety in her stomach. He'll be fine, Liam said beside her, reading her worry easily. Dad's really good at this stuff. I know. Doesn't make it easier to watch him go into danger. That's how you know you really care about someone, Liam said wisely, when their safety matters more than your comfort. Eloise looked down at this remarkable boy. When did you get so smart? Dad says I was born an old soul. Liam grinned. Come on, let's stay busy. That's what he'd want us to do. They threw themselves into farm work, harvesting the last of the garden vegetables, preserving food in the root cellar, checking the livestock. Eloise was learning to identify potential health issues in the animals, using her veterinary knowledge in practical ways she'd never anticipated during her years treating house pets in the city. Around noon, David Yoder arrived on horseback with news. "Two more families have joined our network," he reported. "The Andersons and the Petroviches. They're further north, but want to coordinate." "That's good," Eloise said. "More eyes, more resources." Also, David hesitated. "There are rumors. People in town are organizing too, but not everyone agrees on how to handle things. Some want to reach out to strangers. Some want to turn everyone away. It's getting tense." "Fear does that," Eloise said. "Makes people reactionary." They were discussing security protocols when Bubba began barking urgently. A moment later, Daniel's truck appeared, moving faster than usual. Eloise's heart leapt in her throat. The truck pulled up, and all three men climbed out, looking shaken but unharmed. Daniel immediately sought out Eloise's eyes, as if reassuring himself she was safe, then pulled her briefly into his arms. "What happened?" she asked against his chest. "It's bad," he said quietly. "Worse than I thought." Inside, over coffee, they explained. The campground held about 30 people now. Not just the original stranded tourists, but others who'd gravitated there. Most were scared, desperate, running out of food and clean water. But a core group of about 8 men had taken control, and their methods were troubling. "They've set up what they're calling a resource council," Tom said, his voice bitter. "But really it's just a gang. They're taking supplies from anyone weaker, rationing it out to people who follow their rules." One man tried to leave with his family, Jack added. They stopped him, said once you're in the camp, you can't leave. You just tell others where they are, lead threats back to them. Daniel's expression was grim. "We offered to take anyone who wanted to come back with us, integrate them into our community network. 5 people took us up on it. Elderly couple, a single mom with 2 kids. But the rest are either too scared to leave or too compliant to the new leadership." "And the leaders?" Eloise asked. "They wanted our supplies. When we refused, their spokesman, guy named Rick, made it very clear that they know there are farms in the area. Said eventually they'd come looking, and we'd better be prepared to share." "That's a threat," Liam said from the doorway. They all turned, having not realized he was listening. Daniel sighed. "Yes, buddy, that's a threat. So what do we do?" It was the same question Eloise was thinking. Daniel looked around at all of them. His son, the woman he'd just started opening his heart to, the neighbors who trusted him to handle this. "We prepare," he said finally. "We fortify our perimeter, train everyone in basic defense, and we make it clear that we're not easy targets. But we don't attack first. We're not them." Over the next few days, Donovan Woods transformed. Daniel and volunteers from other farms installed his non-electric perimeter warning system. Tripwires connected to bells, carefully hidden in the woods surrounding the property. They established clear lines of sight from the house to all approaches, clear brush that could provide cover. Eloise found herself learning things she'd never imagined. How to identify defensive positions, how to move quietly through woods, how to handle a rifle properly. Daniel was patient but thorough in his teaching. "I really hope we never need this," she said one afternoon as he showed her how to sight a target. "Me too, but hope isn't a strategy." He adjusted her stance slightly, his hands warm on her shoulders. "That's better. You're a natural." The 5 refugees from the campground integrated surprisingly well. The elderly couple, Harold and Betty Chun, had farming experience and immediately helped with harvest preparations. The single mother, Maria, was a former teacher who offered to help educate Liam and other children in the network. Her kids, Sophia and Miguel, ages 7 and 5, were bright and resilient. "We're building something," Daniel said one evening as they all ate dinner together. Him, Eloise, Liam, and now their extended household. Not just surviving, actually building a community. "That's what the Yoders have been saying all along," Eloise pointed out. "Community over isolation." "You were right about that." Daniel reached under the table and squeezed her hand. "About a lot of things." Their relationship had deepened quickly, necessarily, so given the intensity of their situation. They stole moments together. Early mornings before others woke, late evenings on the porch, quiet conversations while doing chores. Daniel was opening up more, sharing stories about his time in the army, about Emma, about his fears and hopes for Liam's future. "I never thought I'd feel this again," he admitted one night as they stood together looking out at the farm he'd built. This kind of connection, it seemed safer not to want it. And now, Eloise leaned into him, his arms solid around her waist. Now I realize safety was just another word for loneliness. He kissed the top of her head. You've reminded me what it means to really live, not just survive. But their growing happiness was shadowed by increasing tension. Reports came through their network. The campground group had raided 2 abandoned houses, taking everything useful. They'd confronted Tom, Miller's neighbor, an elderly man who'd refused to leave his home. They'd taken his supplies and left him with nothing. We need to make a stand, Jack Burke argued at the next community meeting, before they get bolder. We don't start conflicts, Samuel Yoder said firmly, but we will defend ourselves and our neighbors. The compromise was a mutual defense pact. If any property was threatened, all would respond. They organized a rapid response system. Signal fires, runners, predetermined gathering points. It feels like preparing for war, Eloise said to Daniel that night. It is, in a way, just a different kind of war than I fought before. He pulled her close. But we're not alone this time. That makes all the difference. The confrontation they'd been dreading came 2 weeks after the EMP, on a cold October morning with frost on the ground. Eloise was in the barn helping Liam with morning chores when Bubba and Daisy began their urgent warning barks. Through the barn door, she saw 6 men walking up the driveway, including Rick, the leader from the campground. Liam, go to the house. Now, use the protocol. The boy didn't argue, just ran. Eloise grabbed the shotgun Daniel had insisted she keep nearby and positioned herself where she could see but had cover. Daniel emerged from the house, rifle held loosely but ready. Tom and Jack appeared from the equipment shed. They'd been working on one of the tractors. Harold Chun came from the chicken coop, all armed, all calm, all clearly not surprised. Rick stopped at a respectful distance, hands visible, trying to look friendly. But Eloise could see the calculation in his eyes, the way his men spread out slightly to cover more ground. Morning, Rick called. We're just here to talk about cooperation. We already talked, Daniel said evenly. At the campground, you made your position clear. Things have changed. More people coming through every day. We need more resources, and you've got plenty here. Rick gestured at the farm. Seems selfish to keep it all to yourself when folks are starving. Nobody's starving. We offered to integrate anyone willing to work and contribute. You refused. Your terms were unreasonable. We have our own system. A system based on taking from the weak. That's not cooperation. That's extortion. Daniel's voice remained calm, but firm. Rick's friendly mask slipped. Look, we can do this easy or hard. You got supplies we need. You can share them voluntarily, or what? Daniel interrupted. You'll attack a fortified position against armed defenders. You'll make enemies of every farm in this network. You'll guarantee that when winter comes, you'll have no one willing to trade with you. For the first time, Rick looked uncertain. Network. As if on cue, David Yoder appeared on horseback from the North Trail. Jack's son emerged from the South Woods. The Hoffman brothers walked out from the tree line to the east, all armed, all watching. Daniel had called in their community defense pact. Rick and his men were suddenly surrounded. This is your only warning, Daniel said, his voice harder now. My farm is off limits. All the farms in this network are off limits. You want to survive the winter? Start working with people instead of threatening them. But come back here with hostile intent, and you'll find out exactly what a combat engineer can do to defend his home. The standoff lasted another tense minute. Then Rick stepped back, his men following his lead. This isn't over, Rick said. It is if you're smart, Dana replied. Make better choices. They watched the men retreat down the driveway and disappear into the trees. Only then did Daniel lower his rifle, though his stance remained alert. Everyone okay? He called. Affirmatives came from around the property. Eloise emerged from the barn, and Daniel immediately went to her, checking her over with his eyes. You handled that perfectly, he said. I didn't do anything but hide with a shotgun. You protected Liam, stayed in position, didn't escalate. That's exactly what you should have done. He pulled her into a quick, fierce embrace. God, I'm glad you're safe. As the others gathered to discuss what had happened and plan next steps, Eloise realized something important. This was her family now, not by blood or formal bonds, but by choice and necessity and genuine affection. Daniel and Liam, Harold and Betty, Tom and Maria, and her children. They were all her people now, and she would protect them just as fiercely as Daniel did. Chapter 8, Winter's Approach. The weeks following the confrontation brought both relief and new challenges. Rick's group never returned to Donovan Woods. Those scouts reported they'd moved their camp further south, away from the organized farm network. Some of their members had drifted away, seeking integration with the more cooperative communities. November arrived with the first real snowfall, just a dusting that melted by noon but served as a warning. Winter was coming, and they needed to be ready. Daniel threw himself into preparation with renewed intensity. They insulated the barn better, stockpiled firewood, and moved the most vulnerable animals into sheltered areas. The community network shared resources. The Yoders had excess grain. The Burkes had butchered extra pigs. The Hoffmans had preserved vegetables. Eloise found her medical skills increasingly in demand. She treated everything from cuts and burns to a nasty case of bronchitis in one of the children, pneumonia in an elderly man, even helping deliver a baby for a young couple who'd found refuge with the Andersons. Each success built her confidence and integrated her deeper into the community. "You're the closest thing we have to a doctor now," Martha Hoffman said after Eloise successfully set a broken arm for Jack Burke's teenage son. "We're lucky you're here." But more than her medical skills, it was her presence in Daniel's life that seemed to transform him. The stoic, controlled exterior began showing cracks. Moments of genuine joy, easy laughter, unguarded affection. He smiled more, talked more, engaged more with the community instead of just maintaining defensive distance. One cold afternoon, Eloise was in the kitchen helping Maria prepare apple preserves when Liam burst in, covered in snow. "Dad's teaching me defensive driving with the old truck," he announced excitedly, "in the back field where there's nothing to hit. It's amazing. Want to watch?" Eloise bundled up and followed him outside. In a large field behind the barn, Daniel had set up an obstacle course of hay bales. He was teaching Liam, who could barely see over the steering while even sitting on cushions, how to handle the truck in difficult conditions. "Counter steer into the slide," Daniel instructed calmly as the truck fishtailed slightly. "Good. Now he's off the gas. Don't brake hard." Liam managed the maneuver perfectly, his face scrunched in concentration. When he brought the truck to a safe stop, he let out a whoop of triumph. "Did you see that? I did it." "You did great," Daniel said, pride evident in his voice. Natural driver. Watching them together, this father teaching his son survival skills with patience and love. Eloise felt her heart swell. This was what family looked like. Not the perfect magazine version, but the real one. Practical, loving, built on trust and shared challenge. That evening, after Liam had gone to bed, Daniel found Eloise in the living room with a book. He sat beside her on the couch, close enough that their shoulders touched. "You were watching today," he said, "at the driving lesson." "I was. You're a good teacher, patient but firm. I learned from the best. My dad taught me the same way. Practical skills wrapped in love." He was quiet for a moment. "Emma used to watch us too. When I'd teach Liam something new, she'd get this look on her face, like she was memorizing the moment. Like this." Eloise made an exaggerated expression of concentrated observation. Daniel laughed and pulled her against him. "Not quite, but close. She'd have liked you, I think. You both had that same core of strength wrapped in kindness. I wish I could have known her." "Me too." Daniel kissed her temple. "But I think she'd be happy we found each other. She wouldn't want me to be alone forever." They sat together in comfortable silence, the fire crackling, the house settling around them with familiar creaks. Outside, the November wind howled, but inside, there was warmth and safety and something neither of them wanted to name quite yet, but both recognized. "I love you," Daniel said suddenly quietly. "I know it's fast. I know the circumstances are insane, but it's true. I love you, Eloise Gurley." Eloise's breath caught. She turned to face him fully, seeing vulnerability and hope warring in his expression. "I love you too," she said. "I think I started loving you the moment you stopped to help a stranger on the road. Everything since then has just made it deeper." They kissed then, long and slow and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "Liam's going to be insufferably smug," Daniel said. "He's been not so subtly pushing us together for weeks. He told me I should just admit I like you because life was too short for complicated feelings. Smart kid. Brilliant kid. You raised him well." "We're raising him well," Daniel corrected. Present tense. "You're part of this now, Eloise. Part of us, if you want to be." "I do," she said simply. "I really do." The next morning brought unexpected visitors. A group of travelers led by a middle-aged woman named Karen, who'd been a crisis negotiator before the EMP. They'd been walking for weeks, heading north from Detroit, looking for communities that might take them in. "We're not looking for handouts," Karen explained as they gathered in the Donovan Woods kitchen, warming themselves by the fire. "We're skilled workers, teachers, builders, a nurse, an electrician who knows old systems. We want to contribute, earn our keep." Daniel listened carefully, asking questions, assessing. The group was 12 people total, including 3 children. They looked exhausted but determined, not desperate or dangerous. "I can't make this decision alone," Daniel said. "This affects the whole community. We'll need to meet with the other farms." "We understand," Karen said. "We just ask that you consider us. We're willing to work, to learn, to follow whatever rules you've established." The community meeting that afternoon was intense. Some families worried about stretching resources too thin. Others saw the value in skilled workers who could help build a more sustainable settlement. "Winter's coming," Samuel Yoder pointed out. "These people need shelter. That is not negotiable in our faith." "But where?" Jack Burke asked. "We're all at capacity." "What about the old Miller house?" Tom suggested. "Since I moved to Donovan Woods, it's been sitting empty. It's not fancy, but it's solid. With some work, it could house them." After much discussion, they reached a compromise. The newcomers would be integrated on a trial basis. They'd repair and occupy Tom's old house, contribute labor to all farms in the network, and prove themselves over the winter months. Karen's group accepted gratefully, and within days, the community was working together to make the house livable. Eloise helped organize medical screenings, ensuring everyone was healthy. Liam helped teach the children about farm life. Daniel coordinated the renovation work, his engineering skills making quick work of structural issues. "This is what civilization is supposed to be," Eloise said one evening. "Watching people from multiple families working together, sharing food and stories and laughter despite the hardship. Not governments and infrastructure, but people helping people. That's what we're building here," Daniel agreed. "Something that can last." As November deepened into December, life settled into rhythms. Morning chores, community work projects, evening gatherings where people shared skills and stories. The network had grown to include nearly 80 people across 15 properties, all working together. Eloise's role evolved naturally. She became the de facto community physician, splitting her time between medical care, helping on the farm, and, increasingly, acting as Daniel's partner in all things. They made decisions together, planned together, faced challenges together. Liam flourished with the expanded community. He had other children to play with now, though he remained closest to Sophia and Miguel. His education continued, now supplemented by Maria's teaching expertise and Karen's knowledge of history and social studies. "I'm happier now than before," Liam confessed to Eloise one day as they fed the chickens. "Is that weird? The world ended, but I'm happier." "Not weird at all," Eloise assured him. "Sometimes it takes losing everything to find what really matters." "You mean like you and Dad?" She smiled. "Yes, like me and your dad." "Good." Liam scattered more feed. "Because I was thinking maybe sometime you could officially be part of the family. Like really officially." Eloise's heart stuttered. "Liam, I'm just saying I'd be okay with it. If you wanted. No pressure." The boy scampered off before she could respond, leaving her standing in the chicken coop, mind spinning. Marriage. It seemed absurd to think about in the middle of apocalypse. And yet, why not? The old world and its conventions were gone. All that mattered now was commitment, partnership, and love. That night, as she and Daniel stood on their customary spot on the porch, she brought it up. "Your son proposed to me today, on your behalf." Daniel groaned. "I'm going to kill him." "Don't." It was sweet, and it got me thinking. She turned to face him. "About what we are to each other. About what we want to be." Daniel's expression grew serious. "What do we want to be?" "I want to be your partner, your family, officially, really, completely." She took his hands. "I want to be Liam's mother in all the ways that matter. I want to build this life with you, whatever comes." "Eloise." Daniel's voice was rough with emotion. "I don't have a ring. I don't have anything traditional to offer you. Just a farm, a child, and a heart that's yours if you want it." "That's everything I want," she said. "So yes, however you're asking, my answer is yes." Daniel pulled her into a kiss that spoke of promises and future and love that had bloomed in impossible circumstances. When they broke apart, both were smiling through tears. I think we should get Samuel to officiate, Daniel said. Make it official in the eyes of the community. How soon? How about Christmas? Seems fitting. New beginning, new family, celebration of hope. Perfect, Eloise agreed. They told Liam the next morning. His whoop of joy could probably be heard in Fairview. He immediately began planning, enlisting Maria and the other children to help prepare a celebration. The news spread through the community quickly, met with genuine happiness. In a world of darkness, a wedding was a beacon of hope, proof that life continued, that joy could still be found, that love mattered even in the ruins. Chapter 9. Threats and Promises. The first major snowstorm hit in mid-December, dumping 18 inches in 24 hours. It was beautiful and treacherous in equal measure, isolating the farms and making travel nearly impossible. Daniel used the time to work on indoor projects with Liam, maintaining equipment, organizing supplies, planning for spring planting. Eloise conducted medical inventories, made lists of what they'd need, and spent time with the ferrets, who'd become beloved community mascots. Their stress relief, Maria explained as Pugsley draped himself across her shoulders like a scarf. Impossible to be anxious with a ferret stealing your attention. The storm also trapped Rick's group at their camp, according to scouts who'd spotted their smoke before the worst of the weather hit. They were reportedly struggling, unprepared for winter's full force. Part of me wants to help them, Daniel admitted to Eloise one evening. They're still human beings. But they made their choices, Eloise said gently. You offered integration. They chose intimidation. You can't save people who won't save themselves. I know, doesn't make it easier. It was this compassion, this struggle between tactical necessity and human decency, that Eloise loved most about Daniel. He'd been hardened by war and loss, but underneath remained a fundamentally good man who cared about doing right. When the storm finally cleared, beauty emerged. The farm was a winter wonderland, Christmas trees laden with snow, icicles hanging from barn eaves like crystal chandeliers. Liam and the other children built snow forts and had epic snowball battles while adults dug out paths and checked on livestock. The Yoders hosted a community gathering. All 15 families crowded into their massive barn, sharing food and warmth. Samuel led them in prayer, thanking God for their safety, for community, for the blessings they still possessed. And we celebrate coming nuptials, Samuel announced with a smile. Daniel Donovan and Eloise Gurley will wed on Christmas Day. All are invited to witness and rejoice. The gathering erupted in applause and congratulations. Eloise felt her cheeks heat, but Daniel's arm around her waist grounded her. This was real. This was happening. Ruth Yoder pulled her aside later. I have my mother's wedding dress, she said quietly. It's simple, practical, but it's been in the family for generations. I would be honored if you wore it. Eloise's eyes stung with tears. Ruth, I couldn't. You can. You will. You're family now. Ruth squeezed her hands. Daniel has been alone too long. You brought him back to life. That deserves to be celebrated properly. The next week was a flurry of quiet preparation. In the evenings, women gathered to alter Ruth's dress to fit Eloise. Men worked with Daniel to clear and prepare the Yoder barn for the ceremony. Children practiced songs and made decorations from natural materials. It was during one of these preparation evenings that danger struck. David Yoder burst into Donovan Woods, his horse lathered and breathing hard. They're attacking the Anderson farm. Rick's group? They're trying to break into the cellar. Daniel was moving before David finished speaking. How many? At least 8, maybe more. Jack, Tom, Harold with me. Karen, you're in charge here. Eloise. I'm coming, she said firmly. They might need medical attention. Daniel started to argue, then nodded curtly. Stay back from the fighting. Promise me. I promise. They rode out on horses, moving fast through snow-covered fields. The Anderson farm was 3 miles north, and they could see smoke before they arrived. Someone had set fire to the equipment shed as a distraction. The scene was chaos. Rick's men were attempting to batter down the cellar door, while the Anderson family fired warning shots from the house windows. 2 men were down, injured but moving. Daniel didn't hesitate. He fired a shot in the air, and his voice rang out with command authority. Federal Army engineer, defensive protocol in effect. Stand down immediately. It was a bluff. There was no federal anything anymore. but the authority in Daniel's voice made several men freeze. "This is your only warning," Daniel continued, now backed by Jack, Tom, Harold, and 3 other men who'd arrived from nearby farms. "Retreat now, or face lethal defense of property." Rick emerged from behind a truck, his face twisted with rage and desperation. "We're starving. You people have everything. You were offered integration. You chose violence. Those are the consequences." Daniel's rifle remained steady. "Leave now. Don't come back. Find another way to survive." "Or what? You'll kill us." "No, we'll defend our neighbors. And you'll lose people unnecessarily." "Is that what you want? More death? More suffering?" Daniel lowered his rifle slightly. "It doesn't have to be this way, Rick. Even now, you can make a different choice." The standoff lasted an eternity. Then one of Rick's men, young, scared, said, "Man, I'm done. This is crazy." He dropped his weapon and walked away. 2 others followed, then another. Rick was left with only 3 loyal followers, and even they looked uncertain. "This is weakness," Rick shouted at his departing men. "You'll regret this." But the exodus continued. Within minutes, Rick's little army had dissolved, leaving him alone with his rage. "You've destroyed everything I built," Rick said bitterly. "No," Daniel replied. "You destroyed it yourself when you chose fear over cooperation." He gestured toward the departing men. "But you can still walk away. Find a different path. It's not too late." Rick stared at him with hatred, but finally turned and left, trudging through the snow alone. Eloise immediately went to the injured men. Both had superficial wounds from falling during the chaos. She treated them while the community assessed damage. The equipment shed was a loss, but the house and cellar were secure. The Anderson family was shaken, but unharmed. "Thank you," Mrs. Anderson said, tears streaming down her face. "If you hadn't come." "That's what community means," Daniel said simply. "We protect each other." The ride back to Donovan Woods was quiet, everyone processing what had happened. Violence had come close, very close, but had been averted through strength and unity. That night, Eloise found Daniel in his study, staring at nothing. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "Did I?" "Those men who left Rick, they're scattered now, alone, facing winter with no preparation. You gave them a chance to make better choices. That's all you can do." Daniel pulled her onto his lap, burying his face in her shoulder. "I'm tired, Eloise. Tired of being the one who has to make hard decisions. Tired of carrying everything." "Then let me help carry it," she said, holding him close. "That's what partners do. You don't have to be strong alone anymore." He held her tighter. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do. And in 5 days, I'm going to marry you and spend the rest of my life proving it." Daniel lifted his head and kissed her, soft and grateful and full of love. "Best decision I never saw coming." Chapter 10. Christmas Wedding. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold, the sky a brilliant blue against white snow. Donovan Woods was alive with activity, Liam directing preparations with military precision, Maria helping with last-minute details, Harold ensuring the horses were ready for transport to the Yoder farm. Eloise stood in the guest room, her room for 2 more hours, then she'd move into Daniel's, looking at herself in the mirror. Ruth's wedding dress fit perfectly after the alterations, a simple design in cream wool with delicate embroidery on the cuffs and collar. Her hair was pinned up with small, evergreen sprigs, and she wore her grandmother's pearl earrings, the only jewelry she'd had in her suitcase that fateful day. "You look beautiful," Maria said from the doorway, Sophia and the other children crowding behind her for a peek. "I'm nervous," Eloise admitted. "That's normal, but you love him, and he loves you, and that little boy down there is about to burst with excitement. Everything else is just details." Liam had indeed been bouncing with energy all morning. When Eloise came downstairs, his eyes widened. "Wow," he breathed. "Dad's going to cry. I just know it." "You think?" "Definitely. He cried at the end of The Martian when we finished it, and that was just a book. This is you." Tom drove them to the Yoder farm in the old truck, now festooned with greenery and red ribbons courtesy of the children. When they arrived, the barn had been transformed. Candles and oil lamps provided warm light. Evergreen boughs decorated every surface, filling the air with pine scent. Benches had been arranged in rows, already filled with their entire community. Nearly 80 people gathered to witness this celebration of hope and continuity. At the front, Samuel Yoder stood in his simple black suit, and beside him, Daniel. Eloise's breath caught. Daniel wore his dress uniform from his army days, kept carefully preserved. He looked impossibly handsome and nervous and hopeful all at once. When his eyes found hers, the love in them nearly buckled her knees. Liam walked her down the aisle, his idea, and somehow perfect. "Take care of each other," he whispered when they reached the front, then stepped aside with a huge grin. Samuel began with a simple prayer, then spoke about marriage as partnership, as commitment through hardship, as choosing daily to love and support each other. His words were perfect for their situation. Nothing about fairy tales or easy promises, but about real, tested, enduring love. Daniel's vows, when his turn came, were straightforward and heartfelt. "Eloise, you came into my life when I convinced myself I didn't need anyone. You proved me wrong in the best possible way. You've shown me that strength isn't about going it alone. It's about having someone beside you to share the load. You've loved my son, embraced this community, and made me remember what it means to really live instead of just survive. I promise to cherish you, protect you, support you, and love you for all the days we're given." Eloise's vows came through tears. "Daniel, you stopped to help a stranger on the worst day imaginable. That single act of kindness changed everything. You've given me a home, a family, a purpose. You've taught me that courage isn't fearlessness. It's facing fear with grace and determination. You've shown me what it means to build something lasting, something worth fighting for. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, to love Liam as my own, and to build this life with you one day at a time." Samuel pronounced them married as the community erupted in applause. Daniel kissed her gently, reverently, then whispered, "Thank you for choosing us." "Thank you for stopping your truck," she whispered back. The celebration that followed was joyful beyond measure. Food appeared from every family's stores. Precious supplies shared gladly for this occasion. Music played on fiddles and guitars. Children ran and played. People danced, talked, laughed. Liam gave a speech that had everyone alternating between laughter and tears. "I used to worry that Dad was lonely," he said. "Now I know he was just waiting for the right person. Eloise, you're the right person. Welcome to our family, officially." As evening fell and the celebration continued, Daniel pulled Eloise aside onto the porch. The winter stars were brilliant overhead, the night silent except for the muffled sounds of joy from the barn. "Happy?" he asked, arms around her. "Happier than I've ever been," she said honestly. "Even with everything else, even with the world being what it is, I'm happy." "Me too. You, me, Liam, we're family now. Really, truly. We were already a family. This just makes it official." Daniel smiled and kissed her again, longer this time. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Donovan?" "More than ready, Mr. Donovan." They collected Liam, said their goodbyes, and rode back to Donovan Woods through the silent, snowy night. The farm looked peaceful under its blanket of white, lights glowing in windows, smoke curling from chimneys. Home. Eloise had left her city apartment 2 months ago for a vacation that never happened. Instead, she'd found something infinitely better: love, family, purpose, and belonging. As they settled in for their first night as a married family, Liam already asleep upstairs, Daniel and Eloise by the fire, she realized the truth. Sometimes the end of the world was just the beginning of something better. Chapter 11. Winter's Test. January brought the harshest weather yet. Sub-zero temperatures, fierce winds, and snow that seemed endless. The community huddled close, conserving energy and resources, grateful for the preparations they'd made. Eloise's medical skills were tested almost daily. Frostbite, respiratory infections, a broken bone from a fall on ice. She handled it all with growing confidence, supported by Martha Hoffman's nursing experience and Daniel's steady presence. "You've become indispensable," Daniel said one night after she'd spent hours treating a nasty infection in one of the children. "I don't know what we'd do without you." "You'd manage," Eloise said tiredly. "You always do. We'd manage worse." He pulled her close. "It's okay to accept that you're essential, that people need you, that I need you." It was still hard sometimes, accepting her place here. Part of her felt like an imposter playing at frontier medicine and farm life. But then she'd see the gratitude in a patient's eyes, or watch Liam's face light up when she came home, or feel Daniel's arms around her, and she'd remember this was real. She belonged here. The community continued to function through cooperation. Hunting parties brought back deer and wild turkey, Fairview living up to its reputation. Ice fishing provided fresh protein. The Yoder's larger stores of grain were shared equitably. Everyone contributed what they could, received what they needed. Rick and his remaining followers had disappeared entirely. Scouts found their abandoned camp in late January. Supplies scattered, tents collapsed under snow. No bodies, so presumably they'd moved on or found other shelter. Either way, they were no longer a threat. New challenges emerged, though. A pine tree fell on one of the barns during a storm, requiring extensive repairs. 2 of the goats died from illness despite Eloise's best efforts. The solar batteries were starting to show strain from constant use in low-light conditions. "We're making it work," Daniel said at a community meeting in February. "But spring can't come soon enough. We need to start planning for planting, for expansion, for making this sustainable long-term." Plans were made, seeds were inventoried, fields were mapped out. The engineer in Daniel came fully alive as he designed irrigation systems, crop rotation schedules, and infrastructure improvements. "You love this," Eloise observed one evening as he sketched plans by lamplight. "Building things? Always have. Army taught me to destroy, but I was always better at construction." He looked up at her. "We're building something real here. Not just surviving day to day, but creating a community that can last generations. That means something. It means everything," Eloise agreed. Liam continued to thrive, his education now supplemented by multiple teachers in the community. He excelled at mathematics and engineering, showing his father's aptitude. But he also demonstrated leadership skills beyond his years, organizing the other children, mediating disputes, and contributing meaningfully to community discussions. "He's going to be remarkable when he grows up," Maria said one day. "More so than he already is. He already is remarkable," Eloise said with maternal pride. "We're just helping him become his best self." Being Liam's stepmother had become as natural as breathing. She worried about him, taught him, disciplined him when necessary, celebrated his victories. And he'd started calling her mom without fanfare or announcement. It just happened one day in February when he asked her for help with a project. "Mom, can you look at this animal track? I think it's a fox, but I'm not sure." The word had stopped her in her tracks. When she looked at Daniel, his eyes were wet. "Is it okay?" Liam asked, suddenly uncertain. "Calling you that? It's more than okay," Eloise managed. "It's perfect." That night, alone in their bedroom, formerly just Daniel's, now truly theirs, she cried happy tears against his chest. "I never thought I'd have this," she said. "A family, a child, a partner who truly sees me." "You've given me just as much," Daniel murmured. "More. You've given me hope. A future that's about more than just surviving. Someone to build dreams with." February melted into early March. The days slowly lengthened. The worst of winter's grip began to ease, though cold and snow still dominated. But there was a feeling in the air, anticipation, hope, the promise of spring. One morning in mid-March, Eloise woke to unusual sounds. She sat up, confused, then realized. Birds, the first robins of spring, singing in the pale dawn light. Daniel stirred beside her. "What is it?" "Spring," she said simply. "It's coming." They made it. Through the disaster, through winter, through every challenge. They'd survived, and more than that, they'd thrived. The community was stronger, their bonds deeper, their resolve unshakable. Later that day, scouts brought exciting news. Evidence of other organized communities to the north and west. Contact would be possible come spring. Trade routes could be established. They weren't as isolated as they'd thought. "We should send a delegation," Samuel suggested. "Establish relationships. Learn what others have discovered. Share our knowledge." Daniel volunteered, and after some discussion, it was decided he'd go with David Yoder and Karen in April, once the roads were passable. It would be dangerous, venturing into unknown territory, but necessary for long-term survival. "I want to come with you," Eloise said that evening. Daniel shook his head. "Too risky, and the community needs you here. You're the primary medical provider now. Martha can handle things for a few weeks." "Eloise." Daniel took her hands. I need to know you and Liam are safe here. That's the only way I can focus on the mission. She wanted to argue, but understood. They had different roles, different strengths, and protecting their home base while he explored was just as important as the expedition itself. Promise you'll be careful, she said. Always. He kissed her softly. I have too much to come home to now. Chapter 12. New Beginnings. April arrived with muddy fields, budding trees, and genuine warmth for the first time in months. The community erupted into activity, planting, building, repairing. Children played outside freely again. Livestock grazed in pastures. Life felt possible in ways it hadn't during the dark winter. Daniel's expedition left on April 10th, equipped with horses, supplies, and careful plans. Eloise watched him ride away with David and Karen, her heart tight with worry but also pride. He was doing what he did best, leading, exploring, building bridges. He'll be fine, Liam said beside her, though his voice was small. Dad always comes back. I know, sweetheart, I know. The 2 weeks of his absence were busy. Spring planting consumed everyone's energy. Eloise continued her medical rounds, now including treating livestock preparing for birthing season. The community worked together seamlessly, evidence of the bonds forged through winter's hardship. One evening, while preparing dinner with Liam, Eloise realized she felt nauseous. She'd been tired lately too, chalking it up to the increased workload. But as she mentally counted back, realization dawned. Mom, you okay? Liam asked, noticing her sudden stillness. I think so, just thinking. She looked at him. Liam, how would you feel about being a big brother? His eyes went huge. Really? You're pregnant? Maybe. I'm not certain yet, but the symptoms fit. She hadn't expected to feel so nervous telling him. Liam's face split into the biggest grin she'd ever seen. That would be amazing. A baby? Does Dad know? Not yet. He'll be the first one I tell when he gets back. He's going to flip out, in a good way. Liam hugged her fiercely. This is the best news ever. The next few days, Eloise confirmed her suspicion with the help of Martha Hoffman, who'd assisted with enough pregnancies to recognize the signs. She was indeed expecting, probably due in late November or early December. A baby in this new world with all its challenges. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt an overwhelming sense of rightness. This child would be born into a community that valued cooperation, resilience, and love. Would be raised by parents who'd proven they could handle anything together. Would have a big brother who was already excited beyond measure. When Daniel returned on April 24th, healthy and bursting with news about successful contacts with other communities, Eloise let him share his excitement first. They found 3 other organized groups, established trade agreements, learn about different survival strategies. The network was growing, civilization rebuilding in small but significant ways. That's wonderful, Eloise said as they sat on the porch that evening, Liam having given them privacy with unusual tact. So many good things happening. The best thing is being home, Daniel said, pulling her close. God, I missed you. Both of you. We missed you too. And speaking of both of us, she took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. Soon there might be one more to miss you when you're gone. Daniel froze. Eloise, are you saying? I'm pregnant, due in December, probably. Merry early Christmas. For a moment, he just stared. Then his face crumpled with emotion, and he pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was made of glass and diamonds. A baby, he whispered. Our baby. Are you happy? Happy? Eloise, I'm terrified and thrilled and grateful beyond words. He pulled back to look at her. A new life in this new world. It's like the universe is saying, yes, keep going, keep building. There's still future worth fighting for. That's what I thought too. They held each other as the April sun set, painting the farm in gold and rose. Around them, the community they'd built continued its evening routines. Animals settling for night, families gathering for dinner, children playing until the last light faded. Liam burst onto the porch, unable to contain himself any longer. So, did you tell him? Is he excited? I'm beyond excited, Daniel said, opening his arms so Liam could join their embrace. You're going to be the best big brother. I've been practicing with the younger kids, Liam said seriously. I think I'm ready. They laughed, the 3 of them, soon to be 4, watching night fall on Donovan Woods. Epilogue. 1 year later. December brought snow again, but this time it felt celebratory rather than threatening. The community had thrived through a full year. Crops had flourished, livestock had multiplied, new families had joined the network. Trade routes with other communities meant access to goods and knowledge they couldn't produce themselves. Donovan Woods had expanded. The old barn had been converted to additional housing for families who'd integrated over the year. New fields had been cleared and planted. The Christmas tree business had even resumed in a modified form, with trees traded to other communities for needed goods. Eloise stood at the kitchen window, 7-month-old Rose sleeping against her shoulder, watching Daniel and Liam work with the horses. Rose had arrived in early December, a healthy, perfect little girl with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. The birth had gone smoothly, attended by Martha, Ruth, and half the community holding their breath in the other room. "A Christmas baby," Daniel had said, tears streaming as he held his daughter for the first time. Another miracle. Now, watching her family, her husband and son and daughter, Eloise marveled at how completely her life had transformed. The veterinarian from the city who'd been heading for vacation was gone. In her place stood a frontier doctor, a mother, a wife, a vital member of a community that depended on her as much as she depended on them. The door opened, and Liam bounded in, followed more sedately by Daniel. "Baby Rose awake?" Liam whispered loudly. "Not anymore," Eloise said with amusement as Rose stirred and blinked sleepy eyes. Liam gently took his sister, practiced now at handling her. He walked to the window, showing her the snow. "Look, Rosie, that's our farm. Someday you'll help take care of it too." Daniel wrapped his arms around Eloise from behind, and they watched their children together. One nearly 11 now, tall and capable, the other tiny and new, but already loved beyond measure. Thinking about that day, Daniel asked softly, "When your car broke down?" "Always. Worst and best day of my life." "Mine too." He kissed her temple. "Thank you." "For what?" "For saying yes to all of it. The farm, the uncertainty, me and Liam, this whole impossible life." Eloise turned in his arms. "Thank you for stopping your truck, for taking in a stranger, for showing me what home really means." They kissed, gentle and familiar, while snow fell outside and their children, their family, filled the kitchen with warmth and life. The world had ended, yes, but from the ashes, they'd built something better. Not just survival, but a life worth living. Not just security, but love. Not just a fortress, but a home. And every morning when Eloise woke up to Daniel beside her, Liam chattering at breakfast, Rose cooing in her cradle, and the farm alive with possibility, she knew the truth. Sometimes the end of everything was just the beginning of what you'd been looking for all along.